This is David Cowen with Careers in the Business of Law. This is the Legal Data Intelligence series. It's my great pleasure to have Bobby Malhotra with us today. He's the litigation partner and chair of Winston and Taylor's eDiscovery and information governance practice, a member of the firm's AI strategy group. And if you don't know Bobby, he sits, or this role, it sits at the intersection of eDiscovery, digital forensics, cross-border data issues, privacy, cybersecurity, and AI governance. And AI governance is our topic for the day. Where is it? Where is it going? And what's the impact it's having on the business of law and, of course, your career? I've known Bobby for a number of years now. He's a true techno lawyer. He's been at this for a while. He's not only hands-on technical, but before his legal career, Bobby worked in network engineering, IT consulting, and programming. So he is that rare combination of, Bobby, with all due respect, a legalist, a technologist, and a propeller head. Bobby, welcome to Careers in the Business of Law, the LDI edition. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, David. I'm so excited to be here today. Always a pleasure catching up with you. Looking forward to a very interesting discussion.
Yeah, I always love to talk to you. We've known each other for a long time. You're one of those people that has a constant, what I call radical curiosity. You're just constantly curious about what's now, what's next, what's going on. And I think you bring that with you wherever you go. And so with that, let's just jump in to AI governance. Like, why should anybody care about that? It's kind of a little bit of an underbelly right now, but you're on this. You saw this before others and really started to lean into it. And by that, I mean, you invested your time into figuring out the importance of this and sharing that with your clients. So, um, why is AI governance so important right now, and what's the impact it's having on legal careers?
Well, I think AI governance, why it's important. I mean, we see that from the news headlines, David, right? AI agents going out of control, deleting data, right? Causing potential cybersecurity issues, potentially solving cybersecurity issues. It is everywhere. It's where the larger companies are investing. It's where the smaller companies are investing. And it is consuming just about every industry from law to marketing, anywhere in business, from medical and everything in between. So AI governance is really ensuring that organizations have a vision around AI and they put the right guardrails around AI and they're complying with their, most importantly, the way I look at it, their legal and their ethical obligations. It is a hot button area. It is an area that is well suited for an LDI professional. You are right, David. I'm always looking for the next best thing. And I think this is why I was so attracted to LDI and I became a founding member, because LDI really stands for the proposition of you don't have to be pigeonholed, right? If you want to do other things, you can apply a skill set that you know of in a certain industry and apply it to other areas of law that are related, right? So eDiscovery was the starting point for many of us, but a lot of the principles that we learned in eDiscovery, whether it came to data identification, analysis, legal research, those skills are very pertinent to other areas of law. And I got into data privacy initially, and I still do a lot of data privacy work, including privacy counseling and cross-border work. And then a couple of years ago, obviously in the e-discovery world, we've been working with AI now probably for the longest period of time, right? 2 decades. It's been, we knew about technology assisted review and then predictive coding. So it was kind of a natural fit. It was very much a fit that, you know, you kind of had to learn as you go, because people will tell you I have 20 years experience in AI governance. I can tell you they're absolutely false. It hasn't existed for that long.
That's
So
right.
you have to really put your skills on as being a lawyer. And really what makes it fun for me is predicting the future, because we're at such an early phase right now. Clients are always, am I compliant with the law? Yes, today, but where are we going, right? It's not
That's right.
about where we are today. It's about where we're going from a compliance standpoint, and where are we going to be, and try to predict the future and really try to predict where regulators are going to come out, where judges may come out. So it is a lot of fun in that respect, because it does really allow you to unleash as a lawyer your creativity, unlike many other fields that have already been developed. This is something that is being developed, And the thought leaders of today are really going to have a lot of input in terms of where we end up from a AI governance standpoint when it comes to best practices.
When you talk about developing, I think about the business of law developing from the time that I got into this space again about 20 years ago with you. And so if when we got in, there were let's say it's a pie chart, there were four slices. In our time, it's gone from four slices to six and six to eight, right? And you mentioned a couple of them, privacy and cyber and eDiscovery. And here comes two more slices, right? So the expansion in the space could be considered AI governance, not information governance, but AI governance and data governance. That's two more slices. They're significant. So that debunks the idea of job destruction, right? And it's really creation. And where are people going to go? So from outside the industry, they're coming in. If you're coming from outside and you want to find a community, legal data intelligence is a community. There are other communities. There's Clock, there's ILTA, there's Solid. There's a number of other places to go for conferences. But it's more of it's more of a community with LDI where you can learn about case studies and you can meet with people that share a passion for data intelligence. It happens to be legal data intelligence, but here is this data intelligence. But I just want to talk about the creation of new roles that you're seeing with your clients and at Winston Taylor in and around AI governance and data governance. Can you talk to that a little bit for the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the hottest areas in the legal industry. I think it is an evolving role, David. When you talk about AI governance, there were, if you talked about it 2 years ago, and you talked about protecting attorney-client privilege, that wouldn't fall under AI governance traditionally, but now it does. You talk about AI transcription, that wouldn't fall under AI governance traditionally, right? AI governance is really traditionally focused on explainability, transparency with models, proper documentation, and those types of aspects. But now specific use cases are being bundled in, and the job is really transforming on the fly. And AI governance professionals are some of the busiest in the industry because things are changing so rapidly and so much is being thrown under their kind of umbrella. Personally, I'm really looking to hire people who have an interest in AI. A lot of people say they have 20 years of experience, 15 years. I don't know how, they're probably not being truthful. I look for people who have the curiosity. As you always say, curiosity is so important, who I know are teachable, good teammates, and are smart. I mean, that's what I look for. It's an area where I don't look for a ton of experience. And in fact, one of the best hires I've ever had here at Winston is someone who is fairly green, maybe 3 or 4 years out of law school, very, very smart, former big law associate, just had a really, she had an interest in AI. She has an interest in AI. She had the curiosity. She has the curiosity. And I knew she was teachable and she was, gonna give it her all. And it goes back to, probably my one of my best hires. And that hire came from not having experience in this area, but just someone I knew that would be a good fit in the area, right? So
Yeah.
I'm looking more and more, even though I am the chair of the discovery and information governance practice here, for people who are very literate in AI governance issues, so they can cross over and do hybrid work. And I've done that, for a while, right? I mean, we want eDiscovery attorneys, for example, on my team to know data privacy, to be able to advise on cross-border issues. This is nothing different. It's just another skill set you have to pick up. And I really look at attorneys in my group not just as eDiscovery attorneys, but as tech and data lawyers, and that's what we are today.
Yeah, there's Melanie Prevost and I were talking just a little while ago about the opportunity to create a career today. And I think that when we talk about data governance and AI governance, it's one of those areas very few people have got what I call 10,000 hours. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book a while ago called The Tipping Point. He says, the first to 10,000 hours wins. And 10,000 hours is essentially 5 years at 2,000 hours a year. Of course, nobody's working 2,000 hours a year. If you're at the top of the pyramid, you're working 2,500. So, it's 4 years. But if you don't have 10,000 hours, it's tough to consider yourself an expert. I wanted to peel back, though, on data. There's SharePoint data. There are data lakes. There's web data. Can you just give us a couple of examples of where is all of this data? What do you mean by data governance and AI governance? And where is all of this, data that AI has to sit on to make sense of? Can you just give us a little, like, talk to us like, we're high schoolers. Like, if we were in high school, how would you explain this at the Thanksgiving Day, at the Thanksgiving table?
So, uh, as organizations in the new that are using new and emerging technologies, not just AI, but M365 and other technologies out there, or these organizations are creating data and information at unprecedented scales. And the data could be in silos. It could be located in it could be in numerous different platforms. We're talking about cloud platforms, on-premise platforms. It could be metadata. So the types of data that we are creating is perhaps, it's just unprecedented. Um, one thing I like to kind of mention, even though we talk about data governance and information governance are interchangeable, in my view. IG had its peak after GDPR, and people would want to, organizations wanted to do a data map to understand where personal data resides and kind of create this personal map for regulatory compliance standpoint. And then we got into a little bit of a lull. And what AI has done, it is brought back. It's the renaissance of information governance, as I call it, because the backbone of any solid AI governance program is information governance, understanding where your data is, understanding if it's valid, understanding if there's errors, is it flawed data, do you have rights to use that data, where does it flow, what disclosure obligations do you owe your clients based on processing that data. These are all considerations that you have to take into account, and without having a good solid handle on information governance, you just cannot tackle the AI governance monster.
Let's create a little more clarity, because I think I commingle these two things. As I'm listening to our conversation, I'm commingling data governance, information governance, and AI governance. Can you unwrap that for me? I think that I've
Yeah.
not done a good job of really laying this out for the audience. Can you clean
Yeah.
this up for us?
Yeah, so AI governance really establishes the organization's vision for AI. It takes into account what industry you are. It takes into account your ethical obligations, how you want to position yourself as AI. It helps develop the policies, the frameworks, and ensure regulatory compliance at the same time being ethical and abiding by the vision of the organization. It is the overarching way, the fundamental way that organizations approach AI, how they govern AI, what policies, procedures they put into place, and how they're going to use it, and how they look at it from an ethical standpoint. Because not every organization is created equal in terms of their ethical obligations and what they want to focus on. When we talk about data governance, it's a subset of um, AI governance. So it is consumed within the AI governance umbrella. It is perhaps the most important aspect because it really functions as a control over the data. The data, when you think about, in this post chat GPT world from November 2022, the data is probably the most critical aspect of things, because the more data these models have, these large language models, for example, theoretically, the better they become, right? They're data hungry, but with all of that data comes a lot of risks, right? Privacy exposure, data security exposure or data security issues, issues related to trade secrets and IP. I mean, it just comes with a plethora of different issues. The more data you have and the more data you aggregate. So data governance, and really I use information governance interchangeably because in my world, they're the same, is really getting a handle on where the data resides, and ensuring that you're using quality data, you're abiding by your underlying obligations, whether that comes from a processing agreement that you've signed with counterparties, whether that comes from the underlying privacy laws, or whether that comes from the new and emerging AI laws that we're seeing more and more of, right? So data governance is a subset of AI governance. It is perhaps, in my view, the most important aspect of AI governance, though.
Who's doing who's doing the AI governance work? Is it big law, mid law? Is it corporate law? Who's doing the work around this right now? The regulations are coming out, so and fast and furiously. They're state regulations, federal regulations, EU regulations. Who's doing this work? Is it outside counsel, inside counsel? What's that landscape look like for those that are thinking from a career standpoint? And yet another good reason to be thinking about, the LDI frameworks and the LDI community as a place to be, to surround yourself with people that are thinking along these lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question, I'm going to give you the law school answer of it depends. Uh, it really does depend. It depends on, and I mean, high level answer, both. Both in-house counsel are doing, are working in AI governance. Outside counsels definitely working in AI governance and advising their clients on best practices, on the adoption of AI, regulatory compliance as it relates to AI, policy development, best practices. When I say regulatory compliance, it goes beyond just the emerging kind of AI laws, and we're seeing a plethora of those, as from states like Colorado and Connecticut and Illinois to some regard, California, Texas. But beyond that, there's industry specific regulation. For example, if you're in the insurance industry, you have your own, they're called the NAIC model rules on insurance, which publish their own kind of rules and guidance around how AI can be used within the insurance industry. Same thing if you're a financial institution in New York, right? You're subject to the DFS in New York, right? So it kind of depends on what regulated industry you're in. So it's not just about the laws that you're hearing on the news in terms of chatbots and all of that. Individual, depending on the industry you're in, have their own specific guidance regarding AI generally. And to go back to your question, who's doing this? It is a combination of both. Um, Organizations that have less tech and data lawyers internally tend to rely more heavily on outside counsel, right? So I have organizations, for example, where I'm just an extension of their legal department. Anything AI funnels through me, I'm involved in weekly meetings and I'm counseling the AI ethics working group at organizations. I'm doing a lot of the hands-on work, training, policy development, regulatory compliance. If there's a breach in there's a new area called AI breach, right? As I like to put it, it is not just the standard privacy malware type breach. It is a breach where, for example, somebody inadvertently in your organization uploads a a bunch of personal data into a public platform. What happens at that point, right? What do you got to look at? Obviously, you have to follow the privacy framework to see what data was exposed. Is there a risk of harm? Do you have notification obligations? Can you contain the exposure? But AI adds on other components. You have to look at the terms of service for the AI vendor. You have to look to see whether the vendor is going to certify deletion of that underlying data. So there's other aspects that AI adds on to this, and that's just one of the new areas that are kind of emerging and people are kind of thinking through. So you can just imagine. I've talked for a while. AI governance touches on just about anything that touches on your data because it's all intertwined with AI tools for most organizations. And depending on your organization and depending on how many resources you have internally, you may rely more heavily or less heavily on outside counsel. One thing is for sure, though, going back to what you said, outside counsel is definitely in the mix because even for clients where I have a lighter touch, they come to me for sanity check issues, right? This is our policy. This is what we're thinking in regard to this specific issue. What do you think, right? Or I got this letter from a regulator. What's the best practice to respond? I may or may not be on the front end and dealing with the regulator. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, but I'm at least providing guidance at a high level. So outside counsel is involved, and in-house counsel could be involved depending on the resources they have internally and the expertise.
I'm going to switch and pivot us now to putting your business hat on. And so this is a thread that maybe isn't so obvious if you're listening, but I'm gonna shine a light on it right now. This is business development 101. AI governance, data governance. This is not exciting stuff, right? Necessarily. But if you dig into it, what I'm getting from this is you can see around the corner the risk and the threat that the clients have or that your prospects have. This is absolutely something that's going to be on everybody's radar screen. So when it pops up, do you want to be the voice of authority, or trust or knowledge? Do you want to be that voice? It takes some work to get there. So I'm going to ask you, how'd you get this, right? Like, what advice do you have for those that are not there yet? But what I am coming up with is there's a growing need for this information and for this expertise. If you want to have this expertise, there'll be a demand for it. And this is how you make a career. Find the white space, that corporate America needs to have answers to, right? These are answers that they need. This is wisdom they need, experiential knowledge that they need. Would you like to be that person? If so, raise your hand and go do what Bobby's about to tell you to do right now. Bobby, 1, 2, 3, this is what they do.
So I think first, just going back to your statement earlier when you said when, the moment has already arrived. It's not when, it has arrived. It's one of the hottest areas out there. I think one, you have to understand, if you want to get into AI governance, you have to understand that you really have to wear your lawyer hat.
Mhm.
A lot of people think tech is very important. You can't really advise unless you know the tech. But understanding that there are obligations and new and emerging laws, and being able to apply the laws to the underlying tech and facts is critical. You have to do a lot of this with self-learning, right? I don't
Mhm.
want to.
Mhm.
I don't want to use the statement "fake it until you know it," or something like that. But it is. I mean, it's basically learning on the fly, because this is not something that's taught in textbooks yet. For the most part, obviously there are some AI governance textbooks. IAPP has their certification and all of that, but these are new and novel issues. So you have to learn how to think like a lawyer in this area, right? Understand that there's new and emerging and laws out there, understand the technology, and be able to really apply the set of facts to the law and to the likely law that may be coming out down the line, right? So that's one. Two, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is such a cliche, but I got to tell you, David, how many times I'm uncomfortable in a day. Like, a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, you know this stuff inside and out." No, I can tell you it's a lot of uncomfort, but I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, right? I'm uncomfortable being uh, uncomfortable because I know that is what's going to help strengthen my game and my career trajectory and my knowledge, right? If it's something, it's one thing to be complacent, it's another thing to understand that you may not know everything, but as a lawyer, you got to learn how to spot issues, and you got to learn how to make yourself an expert in an area that you're advising a client on, and get up to speed pretty quickly, right? So that's two. Three, really, I really strongly encourage people uh, to get mentors in the field, right? Who can help you advance your career. For me personally, I'm fortunate. I'm at a platform that's I have an international law firm. I had a great partner who got me involved in the first AI engagement. This was before I've never drafted an AI policy, right? I didn't know the regulations around certain areas in that particular client's industry. But guess what? Going back to one and two, I learned them. I was comfortable being uncomfortable. And now, if you look at it, I know, I consider myself an expert in terms of the industry that my client is in, right? So you got to have that mentor. You got to look for that mentor. And, if you can put in the work, understand that there's a legal aspect of it. It's not just technology. It's a perfect blend of the two. You got to wear your lawyer hat. You got to be able to apply the law and the facts and provide clients guidance. Got to be uncomfortable. You got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
If you're listening to this podcast, I suspect that you've been a striver and an achiever from middle school to high school to college, college to law school or grad school or your first, second, and third job. Like, you've been that person. So there's no difference right now in your career where you step into this seems overwhelming. So did middle school, high school, college, and everything else. It's the same, and it will be, with whether it's your first marriage or your second marriage, your first child or your second child, this career or the next career, there's always the unknown. I don't think there's better advice than being comfortable when you're uncomfortable and trusting your talent. Like, if you got to wherever you are right now, you can trust your talent. And there's no reason to feel otherwise. Bobby, what do you recommend in terms of what to watch, what to read, associations, podcasts. I'll take any one or two, and then I'm going to ask you for your morning routine. Like, how do you start your morning, and when is your day over?
I can tell you when it's over and when my wife wants it to be over. That's two different things. Um, but in
And this
terms
is how
of
you keep your marriage, ladies and gentlemen. Listen carefully here.
no, but I think in terms of the resources, this is not a selfish plug as being a founder of LDI, but I do think LDI has tremendous content out there. Um, AI issues are not just AI issues; they touch on all of the other data areas that we talked about.
Yeah.
Privacy is a big component within AI, for example. Information governance, we just talked about that, how huge that is. If you get into the litigation response cycle, eDiscovery is going to become a critical component. So, the LDI framework, both for building organizations or research, is a tremendous benefit and definitely something that people should explore if they're looking to become a data lawyer and particularly in AI governance. IAPP, great materials there. They have a certification program that will teach you the basics about AI laws and AI governance, transparency, explainability, bias, those kind of key concepts of AI models and how they operate. I encourage everybody to at least read the materials there. And outside of that, I have my own alerts set up that I review on a daily basis around the upcoming and changing regulation, right? We saw what happened in Colorado, right? We had 2 years of we had a bill that was passed and a law that was going to come into effect and earlier this year, and all of a sudden there was a backtrack from a legislative standpoint, and they felt that the obligations were too onerous. They were kind of rubber stamped using the EU AI Act, which does impose certain onerous obligations on organizations, particularly if they're using high risk AI systems. But there was a saga just kind of following, because we were waiting with bated breath. What's going to happen in Colorado? Because it's not just Colorado. It's if you have any nexus to Colorado, you have clients, you have customers in Colorado, you could be impacted by that, right? And that's just one example. Connecticut followed suit a couple of weeks ago and introduced their AI legislation, which is primarily focused on HR related, employment related issues, which is another hot button and high risk topic. But they added certain novel areas like creating an independent board of third party agencies that can look to AI governance practices and kind of opine on the strength of those practices, right? So keeping up and creating those news alerts on what's happening from a legislative standpoint, as well as from a technology standpoint, right? These models are getting better, they're getting faster, there's cybersecurity threats and breaches. Got to stay up on touch and kind of what's going on, what is the best model, because clients are going to be asking you this, right? So I think that's a combination of ensuring you're using the right resources and at the same time working hard. It's a nobody's necessarily an expert at this, as you said. Malcolm Gladwell is not the 10,000 hours, and it's hard to get the 10,000 hours in an area that keeps changing on the daily
That's right.
basis. If you tried to learn the old version of the Colorado Act, right, it got overnight, right? So what happens in that circumstance? So I wouldn't say that getting to the Malcolm Gladwell stage, I think, is everybody's goal. So you got to put in the time. That's a lot of hours.
It's a lot. It is a lot of hours. Speaking of which, take us home. 30 seconds. What's your routine on a daily basis? What time do you get up, and when does your day end?
I get up at usually between 5 and 5:30. My day starts by scrolling through LinkedIn because I do find that as a tremendous source of content as it relates to the areas that I'm in, which is eDiscovery, privacy, AI governance. So I start doing that. I try to take some time for myself and just kind of catch up, see what's happening in the world, and I use LinkedIn as my go to place for that. Other people they have different avenues to do that. Um, I usually get it. I start checking emails about 6:30 in the morning to make sure I'm caught up on last night's emails and nothing. There's no emergencies brewing because being in an international firm, there's no time zone for me. From there, I usually start client calls pretty early because I do service a lot of East Coast clients, and being on the West Coast, unfortunately, we draw the short end of the stick there, and client calls happen very early. And then after that, it's usually a combination of putting out fires, doing internal management things, billing hours, helping clients with various issues. And then my day usually ends, I would say probably 10 p.m., but could be later than that, depending on what's going on. But I try to give myself, I've been trying to be good at this, to try to give myself at least 6 hours of sleep a night.
There you go. I love that. It's, I find it fascinating. Almost everybody I know, including myself, it's a 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. wake up call. And it's an hour for ourselves. Most people I know, it's an hour for ourselves, whatever that may be. You choose LinkedIn. I want to see the Knicks highlights. I want to see the Yankee highlights. I want to see whatever the highlights are that are going on. I find that a very nice, easy way to sort of ease into my day. And then it's a full court press with, whatever the routine is. But I do, and I get the gym in 3 days a week. So I think it's important that we have those routines. I've got a walk-off song for you, if that's okay. I love to do a walk-off song, and you are absolutely a champion in the space. I've loved following your career and being part of the community with you. Thank you for everything that you do for LDI, for the community. You're a give back guy for sure. If you want to connect with Bobby, he's one of those guys that if you DM him, I dare you, he will respond to you. He'll get back to you. And so he's given you the option, the opportunity. He's hiring. So by all means, look him up on LinkedIn, reach out to him at Winston Taylor, or DM me, and I'll be happy to make an introduction. And with that, Bobby, this one's for you. You ready?
I'm ready, but one quick point, David. I'm a Bulls fan, but I can say go Knicks. Yeah, I'm a Wemby fan, but you gotta see the Knicks win this year.
It's unheard of. It's unprecedented. And with that, here we go.
Make a big noise, staying in the street, gonna you got my face, you big displace, kicking your can all over the place, swinging.
Whether you're a Bulls fan or a San Antonio fan, a New York fan, a Chicago Cubs fan, this song for all of us never gets old. Bobby, thank you so much for being a guest on LDI today.
Thanks, David. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
We'll see you soon. If you enjoyed this show, be sure to give us a like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your shows. And if you want to take your career from now to next, never eat alone.